Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is the first in a series to make a live edge epoxy table for my daughter. Well, it looked simple, but it did not go as planned. But I'm going to save the problems for the next video. In this video, I'm just going to show you the basic mold table, construction table we had to build in order to rough in this wood, get it laid out, and have something to pour the epoxy into. Now, this is a big popular hardwood slab that my daughter found. It's about 120 inches long, roughly 46 inches wide on average, and it averages about 4 inches thick and weighs at least 400 pounds. It takes 3 of us to manhandle this thing around the garage, in which it's been sitting for 3 years, so it's well cured out and dry. Now, I consider myself a competent woodworker, but I am no professional by anybody's standards. As we go through this video series, you'll see all the problems that I encountered, but I don't think it was because of my woodworking skills. I think it was because of my lack of understanding how the epoxy would react. And what I'm doing here is I'm just building what I thought was a base that would hold everything level and square, basically a giant mold for the slab of wood and the epoxy to be poured into. So there's the slab all laid out on the roughing in table, we'll call it. You can kind of see it's really high right here in the middle. I'm going to take that down, and I'm going to have to lift this corner because this thing, if you look, it's not very smooth. I mean, it's got dips. It's hard to see on the camera. But if you look at it from the side, or you look at it from this end down here, you can see it pretty good. So if you look down it, you can kind of see underneath that level, see the gaps? And then the high spots, same underneath. There's a big, it's kind of bowed this way. So what my plan is, this board right here is roughly the length, the width of the table, and the thickness when I'm done. And what I'm going to do is I can put that up there like that, and I can kind of see that if I raise that corner, I can get there by milling off a little bit up top and a little bit underneath, and you can kind of see down through there, you can kind of see where it goes, and I'll be able to just get there. So that's the plan. So my thought here was that it would be easy to knock off some of the high spots with just some 80 grit sandpaper on this belt sander. Turned out to not be the case. It's easier to route this down than to try to sand it. So this is the router sled that I'm building. Got one face here. Put my router in here and marked so I know how wide the router is. Give it just a little bit of clearance so it can slide in there nice. This is going to keep it flat. We got the ends marked on here. I drilled me some pilot holes all the way down to this end. And it left me a little bit overhang just because I want it to be a little wider. And I'm going to cut a 2-inch slot right here for the bit. It'll run right down the middle of that, but that's kind of where that goes. So you can kind of see how that works. Let me do this, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So my router's going to fit in there just like that. And it'll slide back and forth, if you can kind of imagine that. There we go. All right, morning. Old dude here. Today we're going to be making a lot of man glitter because we're going to be routing this table flat. It's going to take a few days, I think. I've got my router sled built. I'm gonna start trying to knock down the high points on this table before we get down into the real finer points. So we'll see how that goes. I'm gonna clamp it down here. I may have to come up with a way to bolt it down or something so it doesn't move. I think that's gonna be a problem. Got my vacuum cleaner, got my clamps, got my router. It's time to get started. Couple of passes. A little low right here. I'll probably have to come back and do that again, but that's pretty good. The other thing I have to do is figure out a way to keep this, I don't know if I have to keep it square, but I do need to keep it from kind of shifting. It has a tendency to kind of move around, so I don't want that. First pass down the table. Not too shabby. I'm gonna try it again and try to take out those low spots, but I got an awful long shank on that. It's going to have to be real careful. Well, after a couple days work and piles of sawdust, I've still got about a third of the table to go. to be down to this finished height that I want. See, here's a low spot. We're gonna have to figure out something there, how to handle that. That'll be to the inside. We'll figure that out because I've already gone just a little bit below the board right here. But it's a nice piece of poplar. It's hard as all get out. This brown stuff and these knots are really hard. Yeah, this is where I didn't get the router bit in there correctly, and it kind of dug it out. That might be a problem, but I think I got to do some digging there anyway. That's crappy. That wood's soft, just like this wood over here is. It's not really going to make it. So anyway, that'll be a little work right there. Tighten up the bits. Well, there is the first side completed. I'm going to have to flip it over into the other side. This side took me about 2 days. Let's see. It's all really level. I was using this 1.5-inch router bit right here, and it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 64 courses. So that's 64 twice, because I had to run it once to kind of get a starting point, and then I ran it the second time to get it down to this level that I wanted it to be at, and I'm still not quite right. You can see right here, still got some low spots. I'm going to leave those. I'm going to flip it over to the other side, and then when she decides which side of the table she wants, we will get that one flat. There's our table, and we've gotten to right here, so you can see where we've gone, about 2-inch increments. But we're down here, so it's a 1/4 inch over here. It's about a 1/2 inch over here. So it's still got some low spots. Here's the table using Adam's router, which is a 3/4 inch bit. So it's much more beefier than mine. That's the router and the jig I made compared to that little thing in there, see? Compared to that one, it's that one. It's a monster, it's a hoss. So it looks good. It's pretty flat, smooth, still got, you can still see individual passes. Still has a low spot there and there. I'm gonna have to get Weston to help me flip it over and do the other side down to this. But you can see that low spot, a little bit. There you go. So I finally got the table all level, both sides. Ended up being about 2 inches thick all the way through, right at that. That's about target width. Now what I need to do is fill all these little voids that you can see here. These little bug holes where they've dug, and cracks, knot holes. So that's kind of the next step, is to get all this stuff filled. And then we're gonna split it down the middle and build the mold basically to put it in. So, but there it is. Not too bad for just a homemade jig and router. So I poured epoxy on the table tonight to stabilize these cracks and that big old knot. It's gonna look pretty good because it's a little bit transparent, but it's dark. It's brown, so you won't notice it in the smaller stuff. Might be a little bit see-through in the bigger stuff. But we got all that done. Pretty cool. I gotta come back and pour some more tomorrow because these sink. You know, they're not all the way to the top, they just keep sinking down into the wood. So I'm gonna have tomorrow pour a little more, because these are some big knots that go down through the tree. Went down through the tree, you can see how it's low. That one looks good though. That one's on top, we'll sand all that down. Finally, I don't have to fill this one again tomorrow. That one tomorrow, and this one tomorrow. And some of that on that end tomorrow. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going around and filling in some of the pinholes and some of the lower areas when this stuff sunk or drained away inside this slab. It never poured out on the ground, but it just disappeared into these little bug holes and cracks. I guess they go a lot deeper than you think, a lot more throughout the tree. So after a little bit of discussion time back and forth on how the best way to split this, keep it straight, I decided to take up my buddy's offer of using his shop and his track saw to keep this nice and square. So we took the slab over to his wood shop. We used his track saw and cut right down the middle of the slab, and we also squared off both ends and got it closer to the length that my daughter was wanting. And once we had this slab cut into two pieces, it made it much nicer to work with. It's a lot simpler to move around. Here what I'm doing is building some more of the table, the mold table, and I had to add about 20 inches to it to get it to the proper length for this table that we're getting out of this slab. And then I'm siliconing the walls down and putting a screw about every 6 inches all along the edge. Now, I thought a screw every 6 inches with silicone holding it all down was probably a little overkill, but I think as it turns out, it probably wasn't enough screws to hold everything together, which sounds unbelievable, right? Now, I was worried about the joint where the melamine came together for that extra piece, so I actually ended up moving the wall down so that the wall didn't have the same joint line as the base. So I thought I was doing good there. Again, turns out that is one of the failure points, is that crack, that split. Now, I did struggle to keep these edges as straight as I wanted them, and then I figured out that I could use the straight edge of the slab. If I got it lined up and clamped down, I could push up against it with the melamine, and it kept those pretty straight, so that worked out really well. That was definitely a plus. I didn't have to worry about it moving around. Now, if you're paying attention, you notice that I'm moving the big piece of melamine with that board. I'm sliding it around on the table, the base table. And I thought this was a really good idea because I could slide it back and forth and get underneath it and screw the screws into the wall. And I thought, well, that was pretty smart. But that actually ended up being one of the big reasons why this table failed on the first pour. And once I had the mold all built, I was able to take these pieces out and I'm cleaning up the edges a little more, getting rid of the softer wood, getting them to where I think they're undercut properly, where I can get to them with the epoxy flow well. I'm just taking a grinder and grinding that out. I'm trying to make them look a little more natural and not quite as cut as well. All right, well, today I'm back working on the table. I got the kind of the mold, whatever you're gonna call this thing. I'll call it a mold. It's for the epoxy table, the jig. So this piece is ready to go. We poured this the other day and it's set up, and then I finished this piece here because it sunk a little bit, so I'll sand that down after we pour the main river. And today what I'm doing is we cut this the other evening, this big long cutout. It was kind of chunked up, but it had some square parts, so we made it look more natural, I guess, more like a fire or a river. And then today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take this end piece, and you can kind of, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I kind of marked it with pencil. I'm going to cut like fingers in this thing so it doesn't look like the toe. It doesn't look like Florida sticking out there. So we'll get that done. Man, I love these little vibrating cutting tools. They work so much better than trying to use like a jigsaw or something and trying to make it work. You can just work these. It's like carving in that sense, so you can just keep working it and get it right where you want it. Work really well. And that's what I'm doing here, just trying to make this look a little more natural. I didn't get it right, My daughter wanted me to fix it after this, but I got it to where I got it started. She came in and corrected me on it. We've got the wood sitting in the mold, top facing up. When we do it, the top will be down, but looking at these little islands and trying to decide if we want to do it or not, if she wants to do it, how we can cut this piece of wood to make it all fit in there and kind of add some character to the table. So that's going to happen. And then the 12 gallons of epoxy came in. Not a cheap thing. Epoxy and hardener and color, for that matter. Well, that's it for this video. We got the slab all leveled up and split, squared up. We got the table built. We got the mold built. We got it all in place. In the next video, I'm going to go into the pour and then the curing and then what happened after the fact. So thanks for watching all the way to the end. Like and subscribe if you like our content. Let me know what you think I screwed up on, because it did go sideways when the epoxy started curing. And hey, like I said, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.